Addicts, welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are breaking down Emmanuel Sanders, the newly acquired wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, taking a look at what we can expect from him from a fantasy lens. Now, last year was a very interesting year for Emmanuel Sanders. Played beginning of the season for the Broncos, was traded to the 49ers, and he actually played 17 games last year. Fun fact, didn't have a bye week, so if he would have been a bit more stable, he actually would have been a pretty interesting fantasy asset. So between the two teams, he finished with 66 receptions, 869 receiving yards, and 5 total touchdowns. Didn't miss any games, although he did seem to wear down a bit as the season went on. And we kind of see that as a trend with receivers once they kind of get up there in age, aren't able to necessarily play at the same level for the whole season, and that's probably something we're going to have to look out for Emmanuel Sanders heading into 2020. So he finished with just under 200 fantasy points, 30th at the position, averaging 11.2 points per game. But you really were only happy starting him 5 weeks. The rest of the time, like, his floor was very, very low last year, and I will give him a little bit of a pass because he played with two of the lowest pass volume teams in the entire NFL. So Broncos, very low pass volume. Now, granted, their pass volume was a little bit higher when he was playing earlier in the season with Joe Flacco until they switched over to, with Drew Lock. Their pass volume went down even more. And then playing with 49ers, that was obviously one of the highest run-to-pass ratio teams along with the Ravens last year. So there really wasn't a plethora of volume for Emmanuel Sanders to deal with in either team that he played with. So he's going to the Saints. Saints are obviously not a field stretching team, but definitely more of a pass oriented team there with Drew Brees. Emmanuel Sanders is effectively taking over the Ted Ginn role, but at least at this point in his career, I think Emmanuel Sanders is still far superior to what you would be able to expect from like Ted Ginn. And Ted Ginn did give you at least some fantasy value for a portion of the past couple years. So I do think that there's at least some merit to where Emmanuel Sanders is right now. You can get him very late in drafts. Some other things I thought were interesting last year. So he had 8 red zone receptions, which was 18th in the NFL. Only 9.1 yards per target, 27th. 2.08 yards per pass route, and a true catch rate of 88%. So still a very reliable receiver. Only dropped his passes on 3.1% of his targets, and had a 50% contested catch rate. So still a pretty reliable option. Coming off of that Achilles injury from 2018, a lot of people were expecting him to be dead in the water, and he really was able to recover from that and play pretty admirably, considering his age and considering the teams that he played for. So jumping in and being that second option outside of Michael Thomas on this team, I think he's going to have quite a few boom weeks, and he might end up being more of a DFS type guy that you'll play during the right matchups, and it's probably not going to be someone that you could rely on every single week, but he does have a pretty high ceiling, as he's shown last year. 3 weeks where he actually finished as a top 6 fantasy option at the receiver position. I think he could definitely see a few more of those weeks, especially with Drew Brees. Drew Brees is prone to, put up some 5 touchdown games, and Emmanuel Sanders could be on the receiving end of that. I don't think he's going to eat too much into Michael Thomas's workload. Again, this is more of a taking over Ted Ginn's role, and Traquan Smith is still there, as is Jared Cook, and Alvin Kamara should see a regression to the mean, or a positive mean reversion, I guess is another way of saying that. In terms of his touchdowns, that should go back up. So if Alvin Kamara is scoring more touchdowns, not expecting there to be a massive role for Emmanuel Sanders, but a guy that you can typically get in like round 12 and beyond, I think it's worth a shot. And if God forbid something were to happen to Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders would see a pretty massive boost to his fantasy value. So right now we have him finishing pretty close to where he did last year, just based on the up and down nature of what we're expecting to see again in New Orleans. But I do think it would be at least a little bit more consistent than it was last year. His floor might not be as low. So we have him finishing with 65 receptions, 816 receiving yards, and 5 total touchdowns. But I do think there's at least a chance that you'll be happier with where you get him than was initially expected. So don't have any problem. And I really like him in best ball, again, for the potential to hit in those weeks that He just takes over. I do think that this will probably be a situation where if he does start the year off hot, I'll be looking to trade him because I don't expect him to be able to maintain it over the course of the season. And that's kind of what you can expect to see from some of the older guys. But overall, I think Emmanuel Sanders is a fine pick once you get to like round 12 and beyond. Gives you a nice upside wide receiver option. And you can check our rankings out to see where we have him ranked in consideration compared to the rest of his peers. But that's pretty much it for Emmanuel Sanders. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll continue with Jared Cook in our next video.